Hey guys, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about developing ideas. um, at least my process of developing out an idea. Um, this is gonna be different for everyone. And we can get into the whole pantser versus planner debate if you want. I myself am a pantser. So the first story I want to talk about is Eve and the Mummy. Eve Leach was going to be the main character for my NaNoWriMo project, New York Murder Exchange. But I always like to play with the main characters of my books a little bit, just to make sure I have the characterization down. And so, and there was a contest going on writing.com, and I was like, okay, I need to enter this just for the fun of it. I don't take that sort of thing too seriously. Um, and then over at my Substack, I had wrote about a mummy that um, the corpse had been mummified, like 100 years prior, and it was just a fascinating kind of situation. So I sat down with those two things in mind, and the prompt for this was a typically villainous character type who's just completely misunderstood. And so, the whole plan all along was to make Eve a vampire, so that it worked really well. And so I sat down and I was like, okay, what if after a hard night's work, you know, Eve comes home and she finds this mummy, and from there, and it was one of those things where I think it took me like 2 or 3 hours, and I had the short story done. I did my editing and all that, and I submitted, and it won third place in the contest. So yay. um, but what that really told me is that I was on the right track with the character. um, for New York Murder Exchange, it started with a question: why do Manhattan's elite keep getting scammed? And it's not that the scammers are particularly smart about it. They all follow the same pattern. But somehow the elite just never catch on, right? And some people will say, "Well, Ed, you're not being fair," and maybe you're right. Okay, maybe you're right. Uh, because maybe it didn't happen to the one scammer didn't target that group or that person or whatever. But my thing is, you've certainly heard about it. Everyone heard about Anna Delvey. So then why was Kyle Deschanel able to go and run a similar scam, right? um, and speaking of Kyle Deschanel, I had read a great piece in Vanity Fair on him. Um, and I really like this idea that he had a double life. And so when I decided, I've been writing cozy mystery, so I was like, okay, he's gonna be the one that dies. And I really want people to be torn about whether he deserved it or not. Um, and so as I was kind of developing this out, um, initially in Even the Mummy, um, one of Eve's love interests was her across the neighbor hall, and he was a frat boy who was just obsessed with her. That eventually evolved into him being a finance bro, um, who had a crush on her. A few reasons for that, because you do want the love interest to have some kind of rooting value. Um, and here's where this particular um, set of stories really converge. Obviously, I'm using the same characters and all of that. Um, but in Even the Mummy, I end up having Eve and her time traveling boyfriend break up, opening the door for the finance bro and Eve to start dating in the longer novel. But what I didn't realize is how much um, fertile ground I had given myself. Um, for those of you who don't know, and I'll do a whole genre series if you want. But with cozies, character is king. You really want to put character stuff above everything else. Obviously, the plot in a cozy mystery, the mystery does need to play a big part, but the characterization and how the characters react to things in their own life stories really do take focus. That was something I didn't know when I was reading the Hannah Sweeten series. Um, and I forgot which book it was, but it was um, in the first 10, like maybe 8 or 9. And the murder doesn't take place until like halfway through the book, and I'm like, this is stupid. Why are you doing this? But anyway, um, so that really gave me some fertile ground to work with. Especially a really dramatic chapter where Eve was like, no, the time traveling boyfriend comes back, and she's like, no, 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 you don't get to do this anymore. Um, but I would never have had that if I hadn't written even the Mummy. So a lot of you know, or I think you know, that um, I have been doing 24-hour novella challenges. And the first one I did was pop culture inspired Barbenheimer, where Barbie and Oppenheimer have to solve a mystery together. Again, it's really fun. I love the world I created. I'm going to go back to it. Um, because it is kind of one of those wacky, just really fun things. Um, the second one I did was kind of a new take on that challenge. Writing four fantasy novellas and then squeezing them into a full length book. The reason why I did that is because I was like, in the book I read, How to Write a Novella in 24 Hours, the author kept saying, all a fantasy book is are novellas that are spliced together, and I was like, that's that's not true. And I put it up to a very, very experienced editor, um, some fantasy readers, and they were all said the same thing, like, no. But I was like, well, maybe he has a point, like, and so I'm doing that. I put it together. I just need to splice it together. And the latest one I've done, is called The Sin of Love. It's a gay romance, and um, it's actually a gay dark romance. I'm just learning about this genre now. Again, we can do a whole series on genres if you guys want. Um, but what I found was um I really enjoyed it. The concept of this one is Hudson is a movie star. He's in love with Eric, but they can't be public together because this is 1920s Hollywood, and the studio has um, basically set up a marriage for him. His wife hates him, but a tabloid reporter gets his hands on the fact that Hudson is gay and is trying to blackmail him. When the tabloid reporter ends up dead, Hudson has to go on the run and solve the mystery of who killed the tabloid reporter, with his love interest helping him. For this challenge, my friend gave me a big book of cliched sayings, and I wanted to see how many I could stuff in there. By the way, it's a lot. I over on Facebook, I had put up a post asking how many people thought. Um, and let's just say a lot of the guesses I blew away within the first two chapters or two scenes. So why do I keep, twisting what is already a difficult challenge? Because I like to be challenged, and with some of these ideas, like the dark gay romance, I think it would sell on its own. It hits all of my wheelhouse, but I like to have a little bit of fun with it because if I'm having fun, my audience is going to have fun. And so that's what I try to think about is where are my audience members going to have, or where are my readers going to have the most fun? And so when I think of an idea, I that's the main focus. I have a new, well, not a new. I'm working on a big project next year. It's a fantasy trilogy. It's much more serious than a lot of my other stuff. And someone was like, "Well, aren't you worried about turning off your readers?" No, because I feel like what I'm doing with it is much different. Um, but more than that, I've not seen anything on the market that's like this, and I think that's really going to help me here. So even though it's a little bit outside of what people expect from me, I definitely think they're gonna see um my style and understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. Thanks for watching and right on.